The comments, views, and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of Point72 Academy. All information provided herein is for informational purposes only, is not investment advice, and should not be deemed as a recommendation to buy or sell securities. All investments involve risk, including the loss of principal. This podcast does not constitute an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to purchase any security or investment product. Any such offer or solicitation may only be made by means of delivery of an approved confidential offering memorandum. This podcast may not be copied, and it may not be distributed or furnished to or used by anyone other than the intended recipient without the express written consent of Point72.
This episode, we want to bring you a conversation with Stephen A. Cohen, founder, chairman, CEO, and president of our firm. He joined us in the fall of 2021 as part of our first season to talk about how his career began, what it's like to work at our firm, and why we invest so much in training the next generation of talent. You'll hear from Steve again this season, but we thought this was a great opportunity to introduce you to the person who sets the tone for so much of what we do. Enjoy. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you. So, where did your passion for investing first start?
I was looking at the newspaper when I was 11 or 12, and that sports page would be at the back, and then the stock exchange listings would be right behind it. And I liked math, and so I'd just go past the sports page and start looking at stock prices. And started noticing they were moving every day, and I would watch them. And I think my grandmother used to talk about a couple stocks that she owned, and so I'd watch those. And then I used to sit at a local brokerage firm when I was 13, 14. And they used to have like these theater seats in the front. I used to sit there all day when I could. And I just loved watching the stocks move and change. And that was sort of the genesis of how I got involved.
So you spent a long time looking at the chaos of the market, seeing these patterns, seeing the opportunities. How do you connect those dots?
Well, I think in retrospect, watching all that stuff, it's really pattern recognition. That's really what I'm doing. Connecting the dots is really like your brain kind of saying, I've seen this before. I know what this looks like, right? And just kind of figuring out inputs and trying to come up with some sort of reasoning why something you see makes sense. Just kind of putting it all together and trying to make an investment decision.
So we've heard a lot about how investing requires constant learning and development. You've been at this a while. What are you still learning and working on?
Well, this game is always about learning new things because it's always changing. New industries pop up, government policies change. We're talking about inflation today. When I first started, we were talking about inflation. And then for 20, 30 years or longer, we were talking about deflation. And now we're back to talking inflation again. So it's a full circle. And so, a lot of our people who work for me today have never had to think about the possibility of inflation. So the game is constantly changing. The world's changing. Innovation is never ending. Industries are coming and going. Industries are being disrupted. New industries are forming. So if you want to be an investor with a vast knowledge across many different areas, you got to keep up what's going on.
And you're making all of these decisions with incomplete information. How are you doing that? And how do you train that ability and that intuition that you need?
You're never going to get complete information. It's not possible. So what you got to do is you've got to figure out how to make decisions with the best information that you can put together. You're never going to know everything. And so it's a skill you have to train and then get confidence in that you can do it. And that's really what PMs and analysts do. You make earnings predictions based on models, but those models can be wrong. So you make your best prediction you can, all the inputs that you hope you can put into that model, but you don't have every input. You don't know everything. And so that's just part of the job that you have.
Do you remember the first time it clicked for you and you kind of said, I get this, this is working for me?
I noticed I had a talent for it in high school and college. And I used to watch the tape and I noticed I was right. So when I joined my first firm, I was doing option arbitrage. And finally, I told them I could pick stocks. I didn't need to hedge.
Wow.
Just let me pick stocks without hedging. And they allowed me to do it. And it turned out that I just did my thing. And it turned out that was a good decision on their part.
Point72 manages more than $20 billion worth of assets. It's an enormous operation, but despite the size, there's a very intentional effort to maintain a healthy culture.
Yeah, I mean, the culture I think is collegial. It's high performing. I hold people to high standards. I don't want a mediocre firm. And I think our investment professionals know that. And so it's a firm where I support experimentation. I learn as much from our people as they learn from me. The best ideas of a firm come from within the firm.
And you've talked about reinventing the firm several times, even when things are going well. So what drives that?
I can't help myself because I'm always looking around the corner, not resting on my laurels, but always thinking about where we need to get to. And yeah, I used to drive my management team crazy because we'd have a great year and we'd be sitting back, they'd want to celebrate. And I said, no, we got to fix this. We got to keep moving. And that's the right approach because the world's changing. And I could sort of see where the industry was going and what we needed to do to stay in front. And so that's the attitude it takes to stay in business for 30 years.
Point72 has hundreds of analysts across the world, and you've expressed a commitment to their development. A lot of hedge funds have different business models. Why is development so central to ours?
Well, I think, my belief is learning never ends. Everybody needs a coach. Tiger Woods has a coach, right? I mean, everybody needs to know what they're good at and what they need to improve on. And so we believe in teaching and we believe in helping people along the way to help them accomplish their goals. And I feel strongly about that. I describe it as a two-way deal, not a one-way deal. It's not like I pay you, you come to the firm and you do what you do. I'm committed to your career too. And I feel that's really important. I want your experience at the firm to be however long you're at the firm, to be as positive as possible. And I want people to, whenever they walk away, for whatever reasons they walk away from the firm, to say, what a great experience. It was really fantastic. I learned a lot. They cared about me. And that's important to me.
So how do you evaluate that talent, sort of determine, what it is people are good at, what they need help with, and what do you think makes people successful?
Well, I mean, talent evaluation is hard. I mean, there's no doubt that you're looking for certain intangibles that, drive a successful person. Someone who constantly wants to learn, constantly wants to push their goals forward. I mean, you can't, you don't want people just being satisfied and saying, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to do this every year. It is amazing what people can accomplish if they establish goals, and kind of stretch goals and really kind of shoot for those goals. And, those are the people I want. We have some of the best professionals in the industry. And if I come into a firm like this, I'd be like a kid in a candy store, right? I'd want to talk to them. I'd want to have dinner with them and just kind of pick their brain and try to figure out, what makes them tick, what makes them successful.
Related to that, I think a lot about how we look for diverse talent. What's your view on why we hire diverse talent?
People grow up and have experiences in different ways, and you want to bring that into the firm. Having one type of person, I would think, would create a very narrow culture and narrow experiences of what life's about. People have climbed mountains, they've jumped out of planes, they've done all sorts of unbelievable things. And you want to bring that together in a firm. It's creating sort of a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience. That's what a culture is about. And, you just don't want to make it sort of this kind of narrow, all come from one type of college or one corridor in the US, and, because ultimately that's kind of boring. So, we want a vibrant culture.
Let's turn to the Academy. So why did you launch Point72 Academy? And what have you seen that's encouraged you to grow it?
We were hiring from investment banks to be our entry-level analysts. And we started to see that the quality of the analysts coming out of investment banks were starting to decline as people started to go to other industries. They started going to tech and going out to Silicon Valley. And so instead of just sitting there and accepting dilution of our talent, we decided to set up our own academy and go out and find the best and brightest coming out of university. And so we're controlling our destiny. And these are the future analysts and PMs of the firm. And I know it's working because our PMs really love the talent that's coming out of the academy. And we're teaching them the raw skills that they need to be successful. And then, as we talked about with career development, watching them and supporting them along the way so they become full-fledged analysts and maybe PMs down the road.
So to this audience, what is the message on why right now is an interesting or opportune time to start your career in public equities investing?
The amount of innovation going on in the world is just incredible. The things that we're talking about, clean energy, the explosion in biotech companies, electric vehicles, quantum computing, all this stuff's coming down the pipe. So the industry's dynamic. There's a lot going on. It's exciting. It's dynamic. Every day you wake up and the world's changing. If you're looking for an opportunity to get involved in something where your brain's always on, it's always working, you're always engaged, it's exciting. I know my people can't wait to get to work every day. I mean, if you're passionate about markets and passionate about investments, then I can't think of a better job. I mean, that's the way I felt when I started my career.
And how do analysts like this advance in those careers? Or maybe, maybe you could also talk about just some pitfalls you've seen along the way.
It takes a while to develop the skills that are required to be really competent and successful. And what you got to watch out for is you got to be patient. A lot of times people get seduced by offers from other firms where they sell you the dream. And the reality is it doesn't always work out. And you've really hurt your career by being impatient. I mean, the reality is a lot of these people, who are taking jobs with us are in their 20s. They're probably going to live to, based on science today, at least 100. So, a year or two seems relatively, in the whole scheme of things, not that big a deal. But the whole point is don't short circuit your career for an opportunity that potentially may not be in your best interest long term. I think most people who take that detour would look back and say, yeah, that was a mistake.
Steve's success in the industry has opened doors for him to pursue some of his other passions around the arts and sports. And he applies some of the same skills he's built in investing to those passions. Obviously, nobody just starting their investment career is going to have those exact interests, but the skills you build in this industry can apply to other areas of your life and vice versa.
Well, it's funny. A lot of the decisions that you make in art or actually in baseball and the Mets are not dissimilar from what's going on in Point72. We develop internally and we sign players at the Mets, and we hire people outside the firm in different roles, and we develop internally at the firm too. We use analytics in both places. So there's a lot of similarities. Obviously I use my eyes and I buy art because, I love it and it means a lot to me. But I'm using my brain, as I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it as an investment decision too. And, that's a little bit different than buying a stock, because there's passion involved too. You try to keep passion out of your investment decisions. And so you do get a little, sort of emotional about a piece of art. But, you're still using your brain in a way of trying to figure out, is this the right piece? Is this the right moment to buy that? Are there others that might be better? So you're thinking about it, it sort of as an investment. If I'm buying a stock, is this the right stock within an industry? Can I perhaps buy a better stock or a better company? And so, there's some similarities. They meld into each other. And because I'm involved in all these different areas, they actually make me better overall.
That's interesting. Over time, what strongly held beliefs of yours have changed in the time you've worked in this business?
Wow. It's a good question. I would say I'm much more open to other ideas. And the older I get, the more I realize, the less I know.
Hmm.
That sounds strange, but there's so much going on out there. And so I try to expose myself to as much as possible. If I get the opportunity to learn some new things, I like asking lots of questions. And through that interrogation, that's how you learn. And so, I don't mind looking foolish and I don't mind looking dumb, but over time, I get a little smarter. And that's how it works. That's how you learn. That's how I get involved in all sorts of stuff. I keep asking questions. And I would recommend anybody keep asking questions. Don't be afraid you know, to look like you don't know anything, because that's the only way to learn.
I think that's one of the best lessons probably of the whole season that you could have shared. So I appreciate that. What are some of the other habits that help define you?
Well, I think I'm tenacious. I just drive toward a goal, and listen, if it's an unrealistic goal, then you shouldn't do it. But if it's a realistic goal and one that we've explored and said this makes sense, I'm going to make it happen. That's who I am, and that's how I go about things. When I decide to get involved, I'm committed, and I don't like doing things halfway. I don't want to make excuses at the end and say, "Well, I didn't really get involved, and I didn't really care about it that much." I don't want to fail because I didn't really give it my all. And so, listen, I bought the Mets, right? I mean, a real challenge, right? We get this is what I call a fixer upper, and it's highly public and it's on the back pages. If I succeed, I'm a hero. If I fail, they're going to hate me. And but I'm highly committed to make this happen. Can't say I'm going to be successful at it. There's a lot of variables. I can't control everything, but I'm going to give it my all.
So you shared some great insights about yourself and about the firm and just sort of taking it all together to kind of close out for everybody. What advice would you give yourself starting out or to someone starting today?
What I would say is, if you're starting out, find a place that's going to care about you, that's going to mentor you. Just don't go to a place where you're going to sit in a corner and hope it happens, because hope is not a strategy. You want to go to a place where there's a plan, that there's people who are going to watch your career develop, who are going to work with you, that have shown that they've done it before. So it isn't just talk. A lot of firms will just tell you anything you want to hear. But, what is their success in actually developing people? And I would talk to people at the firm and ask for, talk to them because they've lived it, as opposed to just something in your imagination, because what you're about to go through is what they've been through. And if their experience is good and consistent, then probably your experience is going to be the same. So do your due diligence. I mean, it's amazing that people will analyze the stock every which way, but in their own career, they'll make decisions that are really not as well researched. And so I would do the work there to make sure that the promises that are being told to you are promises that are real.
Well, Steve, thank you for sitting with us today and being a part of this podcast. Really appreciate it.
All right. I enjoyed it, Jaimi. Good talking.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jaimi Goodfriend, and this is Becoming a Hedge Fund Analyst inside Point72 Academy. Listen to our entire series to hear from portfolio managers, analysts, and others on the ins and outs of this industry and learn how you can become a part of it. Visit our website at point72.com/academy to learn more about how we are training the next generation of investors.